Hey guys, it's Eric with the Miller Park Man, where we're throwing strikes and getting likes, hitting dingers, and getting listeners back again with another episode, talking Brew Crew like we like to do just about every single day on the podcast. 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time is our upload time. We are on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Google, Amazon, just to name a few, all podcast sources. So 5:30 a.m. Central Standard is our upload. If you want to join, we are on Facebook and Twitter as well. Miller Minute on Twitter, the big X. We also record a live session every Saturday. Of course, what time is it? It's football time. But you can also use the code for this, your favorite baseball podcast, the Miller Park Minute. You can use our code to save yourself on NFL tickets. So if you want to go see the Packers, you want to go see any one of your favorite NFL teams around the league, $20 off your first purchase with code Miller Park Minute. Go save some money. You can also join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/Miller Park Minute. As we all know, it is started football season. People are tune out to baseball and tune out to football. I have the Thursday night game on right now. It's gonna be that time of year where people are gonna fade. The Brewers fans are gonna fade. There's a certain fandom gap, and I think a certain subset of the Brewers fans that only pay attention when it's not football season. This is a football heavy state, and I know that. My question, though, and the reason for this podcast today is we're going to talk about why the fandom is where it is. First, we're going to cover some scores. Then we're going to talk about, are you a full-term baseball fan, or are you a football fan that happens to follow the Brewers during the summer? There's a big difference. Also, kind of want to talk about Bud Selig and what he's done for the game. I know it's been covered a million times. We've talked about it a million times, but I think it goes without saying. I just finished his book For the Good of the Game, and Bud Selig's got some interesting notes in there. So I will talk about that in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to talk about the standings and the scores around MLB. So we gained a half a game today because the Cubs lost. The Cubs lost to the D-backs 6-2. D-backs was the final score. Thank you, D-backs. Cardinals 8-5. The Braves beat the Cardinals 8-5. Yankees got beat by the Tigers 10-3. Dodgers beat the Marlins 10-0. The Mariners 1-0 over the Rays. The Red Hot Mariners 79 and 61 right now. And the Guardians and the Angels are scoreless top four. So what does this do for the standings? The Cubs are back a half a game. We are currently sitting at a magic number of 22. 21, 22, something like that. Basically, we are still sitting atop our division. This is where it gets interesting, gets fun. The New York Yankees, however, are not in a playoff contention. They are at a perfect 500 right now, 70-70. So that bodes well for us going into the series. I did take a look here to see, and they did update the pitchers. So we got Ray versus Severino, Miley versus King, and Burns versus Cole. So Ace versus Ace on Sunday. Garrett Cole, though, is 13-4 with a 2.9 is 0 ERA. King is 4-5 with a 2.88 ERA. And Luis Severino is 4-3 with a 6.75 ERA. He's been hit up. So I think these are all winnable games. My best hope is to take 2 or 3. I think I said that last night. And just keep on going from there. So that being said, that covers all the news and notes along the Brewers baseball side. We talked about Vera came up already. Um, I just want to check to see if there was anybody rehabbing. I don't think there is. I think all of our rehabs. All right. So that being said, let's talk about this. So the title of the book is For the Good of the Game. And it's I want to make sure that's the exact title before I quote it. Bud Selig. Alan Selig, Bud. For the Good of the Game. Bud Selig is the author. Oops. So this book came out in 2019. And let me tell you, first and foremost, it's a very interesting story. One of the things I would say about this is we really didn't realize where we I guess I didn't realize. I mean, I obviously I'm 38. I'm a little younger than the main audience here, but one of the things I didn't realize when I opened this book is just how impactful Bud Selig's career really has been, not only for Milwaukee but for the history of the game in general. I mean, I know a lot of the stuff with the steroids, that was the Bud era. Um, I know a lot of the change that was brought in, but he brought in different aspects and different things that really kind of made it full circle for me. One of the things that I caught in the book was he was talking about having owners meetings in Kohler, which is just outside of Sheboygan, at the American Club. And I thought that was kind of funny because you think about like this little old Wisconsin, and you got George Steinbrenner and all these guys. He talked about his friendship with George Bush when George Bush was running the Astros. He talked about his friendship with George Steinbrenner. He was a long-term friend of George Steinbrenner, which was super cool and super crazy. Um, and they talked about Bonds, of course, and Game of Shadows. And if you haven't read Game of Shadows yet, that's also worth the read. There's a lot of information about just steroid use overall in sports and how it came down in baseball. Very good stuff. He really kind of nipped the bud on steroids as much as he tried to get it out of the game as quick as he could. There was a lot of law and regulation that had to do with it, so it wasn't 100% his fault. He goes down as the steroid era steroid era commissioner. But what you don't know is that the law was the big thing that came into play with this, and that's very important to the history of the game, because without that, there'd still be guys allowed to juice. So I think that's important. The other things that just the extra work that he put in trying to buy different franchises and get different franchises here to Milwaukee, here to Wisconsin for us to enjoy, and what he had to do there. Literally, it was. I mean, we know the story. You guys all know the story of how the uh, the games came to be and how the Brewers came to be in Milwaukee. But the thing we don't think about, and I don't think about enough, is this is just one guy who had a passion for the game, took the fact that we had a minor league team, we had a team that left. And there's a lot of history in this book, and I'm not gonna recount everything because, quite frankly, my brain doesn't have the capacity to cite every specific detail of why the Braves left and everything like that. But it came down to money and market, and he talked a lot about those things. And it really made me think about how grateful I am that there is a guy named Alan Seelig or Bud. Um, that brought the game here. And I don't think, he even talks in the book about how, he was a big Packers fan and, Packers played their games at County Stadium and he talked about all that. And he talks about his friendship with Herb Cole and just his youth and how crazy this is that this guy just made this impact. And we wouldn't have a team to be sitting here complaining about. I wouldn't have a team to be sitting here podcasting about if it weren't for Bud. So I definitely recommend this book. It is a solid read. About 10 hours, a little less, maybe. I don't know. I did the audio. The audio version went quick. I just didn't have the time to sit and put a book in front of my face. I'm gonna be doing a book now, a baseball book on the regular. I actually just picked up the Eric Kratz book. If you haven't read it yet, I'm going to be reading it over the next week. This was Tim Brown from Yahoo and Eric Kratz. The library got this in specifically for me. So we'll be reading that. We'll do a book review. Book reviews may come on the regular with this channel. I'm also reading Mariano's book right now. There's Cal Ripken one on my list. A couple others. If you guys enjoy baseball books and have any recommendations, leave them down in the comments below. This is going to be a new thing for the good of the game. Gets a 5-star review from me. 5 out of 5. I'm going to write it on Amazon, Apple, wherever. I'm going to put it out there because this book is a must read. My wife actually has a copy of this book in the other room. You see, I got a couple books back there. I even have the Cubs book. Life is Easy, the Game is Hard. The Ferguson Jenkins story. I've got baseball book upon baseball book. If you name it, I got it. I've got the Brewers at 50. I've got Rock's book, and my wife has Rock's book in her room. Perfect. I've got a bunch of these different books, and this is a layer to the story that I haven't talked about because I've read all these books and I've done the research over these years. I think that's another big passion that I want to dive into here. The other things is just the negotiations. I think those were the big things he talked about in this book, and I was kind of surprised at what he had to say about the American League versus the National League, the introduction of interleague play. Um, he talks a lot about philosophies and the difference in ownership, small market to big market, revenue sharing, and that's kind of some inside baseball stuff, like inside baseball. But what it does is it makes it opens your mind to the possibilities of what we don't see. I still, even listening to what Bud had to say here, I still think there's more to the story that we don't know. I'm always one to criticize the small market owners for not spending enough. And I think he kind of really defends the case, but he also makes you opens your eyes to a few things. I guess is the best way to put it, without giving too much inside detail of the book, he really opened my eyes to some things. I still think they're being cheap. That ain't gonna change. But he does talk about Antanasio and bringing Antanasio in and what a family he is, and just the great history. This is probably one of the best history books of Milwaukee baseball history. Um, other books I would recommend Rock's book. Maybe I'll do this once a month where I'll just sit down and talk about a book. But I really think For the Good of the Game is probably the best current read that I've read, and I've read a stack of them. I mean, Mariano, the last year's The Yankee Dynasty is one on my list that I enjoyed. That was Joe Torre's book. But I read this in conjunction now with the steroid book, and oh my gosh, I just blanked on the name of the book. I just said it a minute ago. But A Game of Shadows. I read this in conjunction with Game of Shadows. I figured, all right, first we'll read about and hear about the whole Balco thing and everything that happened there, and then we'll go to Bud Selig and what he has to say. And he didn't chastise or make anything bad. He said some of these guys were his favorite players. Talked about his relationship with McGuire, and just what good people some of these players. And there's an interesting tidbit about Ken Griffey Jr. calling to ask if everyone could wear 42 on April 15th. I thought that was a good piece. And just overall, great read, great book, guys. I think we thank Alan Selig, Bud Selig. Heck of a guy. Definitely worth the pickup, worth the read. If you don't, just listen to it because it's not one of those boring audiobooks by any means. It's a great read, great pickup. I think next I'm going to talk about the Mariano book, and then we'll do the backup catcher. I was hoping to get Eric Kratz on the show at some point. We'll see if that's still a potential. I got a DM out there, and he does his own podcast now, and he's done a press tour on this. But it's kind of funny because anytime, so if you listen to podcasts, anytime that somebody like has a book come out and then they do the podcast circuit, what happens is the people skim the book and they don't actually read cover to cover. So they're like, oh, I read a sampling of your book. And it's like, no, you got to read the full story. Like if I were to have Bud Selig on, I would have read this book cover to cover. If I can get Bud Selig ever on the program, if anybody's got an inside line, let me know. But you read the book, you do the research to provide, and that's what I'm doing here for you, and that's why I do the research every day, and do the reading every day to present the best possible podcast for you. So that being said, guys, that's the Miller Park Minute for tonight. A little different episode, a little different speed. I hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, For the Good of the Game is the name of the book by Bud Selig with Phil Rogers. I went through the audio. I do have the physical hardbound copy, but it's worth the pickup. It's worth the read. You understand a little bit more of the importance of baseball in Milwaukee and why they're here. Why I don't think they're going anywhere. It really doesn't sound that way. This is just, it's all politicking at the end of the day. So I guess the question I ask you is, are you happy? Are you grateful? If you're not grateful right now, if you're just half-baked on the Brewers, go read this book. It'll make you feel a lot better about the team that we call the Milwaukee Brewers and the team that we call our own. So that being said, guys, tomorrow we'll be back with a regular episode. So if you found this boring, didn't want to hear me talk about a book today, too bad, so sad. NFL is back in action, I know, but we still got baseball. We still got games that we're gaining in this race for October. And we're still going to talk baseball. That is what it is. I ain't going to record any less. I ain't going to talk any less. And this show ain't going nowhere. So as always, guys, go Brewers, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Remember to like and subscribe. Share this with a friend. If you did like this book or you do have a recommendation for a book, drop a comment down below for me or tweet at me. Any influential baseball books that you've read, I'd like to hear about them. Guys, thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day whenever you're listening to this, and go Brewers.